Hello everybody, and welcome to this short video, should be shorter than the last one, which is going to introduce to you Assignment 3. Now Assignment 3, as you guys may have heard in class, this one will be different than the other sections. Now this is because we're kind of falling behind and we're just not far enough ahead to do everything that was in that assignment, so I took a little bit of a sidetrack here and we will be doing one of these assignments that I made. Alright, now because this assignment, I wouldn't say it's easier than the other one, but it is definitely a little bit more our pace. I'm going to make you do all of the coding for this. So there's going to be no skeleton code for you at all. You're going to be required to create all the files and start from scratch. Now that won't be a huge problem, because this video here I'm going to really help you kind of look into some of those things. So this is a simulator. It's kind of a simulated battle game. Alright, I kind of gave you a little tidbit here to say that we're a developer for BasicGames.inc. Why Basic Games? Because this game is very basic. Players can pick from multiple classes. You know, this could be similar to games you played before, like Pokemon, where there's different Pokemon, but they also have, you know, they have health points, they have damage, they have different attacks. League of Legends, Overwatch, I talked about all this stuff in class today. And so the three player classes that we're talking about here is we're going to have a red player, a blue player, and a green player. Now these little weapons underneath indicate the weapons that we'll be using in this game. And each kind of player is proficient with certain weapons. In addition to that, I did rip off of Pokemon a little bit in that red players deal super effective damage to green players deal super effective damage to blue players, and blue players deal super effective damage to red players. In addition to that, there's also not very effective damage, in which if a blue player attacks another blue player, they will not deal very much damage. So there's kind of a whole bunch of stuff intertwined in this assignment, and it's a very good exercise in inheritance. So all you need to do really is follow this PDF step by step. I've written it this way. You can just follow it in order, and it should work out for you pretty well. So in this video, I'm not even going to really read the assignment. I'm just going to help you get started, and then I'm going to let you take the reins for yourself. So you can see I summarize kind of the things that are going on up above, and then I talk about actually coding the assignment. The first thing you should do is create these files, okay? You're going to want to create these 5 files. You're going to need the header files for the classes and the implementation files for the classes. So we're going to have a player.h, a weaponslot.h, a player.cpp, and a weaponslot.cpp. In addition to that, I'm going to make you make your own main file, all right? I have not provided one for you. In this assignment, you're going to get some practice declaring your own objects and calling functions from them. Okay? So, as you can see here, I've made these 5 files. I just make text files, and then I usually change the extension. There may be an easier way to do that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up these files in VS Code. Now, this is not my first take of this video, so I am going to black out the screen for just a moment so I can kind of hide some of the stuff that we're talking about, just so I don't get ahead of myself. Now, if you want to get a nice head start, once you create all these files, you might wonder, what kind of libraries am I going to be including? Well, if you want to skip way ahead here in the assignment, I actually tell you exactly what libraries you need to include. So if you come all the way down to the bottom, you'll notice this little section here that says to get this to work. It says the player.cpp file should include this should include that, this should include that, and this should include that stuff. So in fact, if you kind of put all these libraries in there right at the start, you're going to get a nice head start. Things might work. So you notice here in main, I've included player.h already. Let's go take a look here. Looks like I got that right. And the actual file you'll be starting with is weaponslot.h. So if you check that one out in the PDF, you'll notice that the weaponslot.h should include IOStream. Excuse me. So once you kind of get all these libraries working, the files should be communicating with each other quite nicely. All right. In the player.h file, I'm going to be including that. That seems right. Player.cpp should probably include the player.h class. Weapon slot, that's good. And weapon slot.cpp should probably include the .h file for that class. Now there's a few others that I think I ask you to throw in here. In the player file, I might ask you to include string. And I might ask you to include fstream. I think that's it. So once you kind of get all these connected, you're going to be good to go. Don't forget to just pull in your namespaces. Why not? Keeps things nice and clean. Keeps things nice and working. All right, so now we've got all these files. We put in all the headers that we need. So now you're ready to run off to the races here, to go ahead and get started on this assignment. So, as I said, you should follow this in order. So let's start with the weapon slot class. The first thing you should do is use this UML to fill out your class. All right, this is a different UML than you've seen before. Notice there's no plus or minus things. All right, I've kind of designed it this way, which I believe is easier to read, though it's more work, obviously. Now, instead of plus or minus, I tell you if it's private or public. I tell you what kind of member it is. I tell you if it's constant or not. All right. Notice that a constant variable is different than a constant function. Okay. A const variable just means that it can't be changed. And a const function means that the function can't change the object. So we should know the difference between these two things. But I am using the same column to communicate that. I tell you if it's static. I tell you what type it is. I tell you what's name. And I tell you if it what parameters it takes, if it does. Now you see I've kind of put in these not applicable things. That just means that whatever we're talking about here in this column really doesn't apply to whatever this thing is. So for example, a constructor, it can't be constant, it can't be static, and it doesn't have a type. Okay, so that is where I put the non-applicable stuff. Just like an int damage is not likely to be taking any parameters. It's not a function. But if we're talking about, say, a function down here like void equip, I say, hey, it takes a string. That is your parameter list. In this case, get name, it could take parameters, but it doesn't, so it's empty. So, like I said, you're going to want to just start filling that out. Weapon class, weapon slot. Don't forget your semicolon. Go ahead and start filling out some of the stuff. If I remember correctly in there, you're going to have a string name. You're also going to have a const int damage equals 3. And then the next thing you should start working on is, I don't know, maybe the constructor, weapon slot, yep. And then maybe a void equip string. All right, just fill them in. Just go ahead and fill them in. Continue on doing this. And once you've filled them in, then this is the wrong place. Please excuse me. This goes in your H file. Your CPP file should not have the header in it. So once you filled that out, you're ready to kind of follow along here with the rest of the assignment. So I already did this part for you, but now you're ready to kind of follow along here and fill in the definitions for these functions, right? So you've done this before. How am I going to do this? Well, I need probably my scope resolution operator, the name of whatever we're working on, and then a body. If it's a function, I'll need the type of that, the scope resolution operator, and then probably the name of the function. As long as I can spell it right. Now remember, in your definition, don't forget to give your parameters a name, for those of you who I've caught doing that before. All right, so there you have it. Now once you've finished with that, you might want to kind of stop, take a break, and go test your stuff. So go ahead and come into your main CPP file, and go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to declare myself my own weapon slot. And I'm going to try a few things. Maybe I'll try to equip maybe a sword to see how it works. Maybe I'll try to equip something that's not supposed to be in the game, like, hey, how about a mouse? And then maybe you might try to say, hey, I'd like to say, I don't know, calculate the damage. Theoretically, let's say I have a player who has 2 strength and 2 skill, and I want to calculate the damage. So then you can kind of test out to see how things are working. Now, once you've finished with that, that means you've completely finished, this section of the assignment. You're ready to move on to the player.h and player.cpp files. Now, your player class and all the derived player classes are going to go in here. So you got to fill out this big old UML. This is the biggest one. And then go ahead and fill out the functions, right? So what does that look like? Well, you come into your player.h file. You say, hey, class player. I got to stick with clang tidy here. Fill out some stuff. And then when you're ready, you're going to come into player.cpp and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to do the void player.sayEquip function and fill out all that stuff, right? So that's up to you to do. And once you've done that, you'll then move on down here to the derived classes. Now, these are the derived classes. They're going to go in the same file. All right, they're going to go in the same file. Now, I tell you how they should inherit. That's publicly. So then you'll come back into your H file. You say, hey, I'm going to make my class red player now, which is going to be inheriting publicly from my regular class player. And I'll put my stuff in here. And then when I'm ready, I'll come back down in here and I'll say, all right, now I'm ready for my function or functions. And I'll fill them in. Right? So, the lesson from this assignment is first fill out your classes and then follow the instructions to fill out your functions. Once you're finally done with all of that stuff, I do kind of talk about where you can test your stuff. You can go to code grade, or like I said, I want you to write your own main file. Go ahead and come in here and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and declare my own red player, RP. I'm going to declare my own blue player, BP. And then I'm going to say, hey, red player, I'd like you to equip a sword. And I'm going to say, hey, blue player, I would like you to do damage to the red player, and so on and so forth. Go ahead and see how your code's working, if it should be working. Is the super effective message printing? Is the correct weapon sound being made? Is it printing? So go ahead and test all that stuff out in main, okay? Once you're finished with that, you're welcome to submit it to code grade, see how things go. And of course, as I discussed today in class, I've added comprehension questions. Go ahead and check those out on Web Campus. They're very easy. Just go look in the notes and answer them. It's kind of nice practice for you to understand what we're talking about. Of course, submit all files to code grade, except for your main file. So that's it. Of course, this video was not super descriptive. Basically, I just told you to follow the PDF, right? But I did help you get kind of started here by making the files and typing some things in. So I wish you luck, ask me questions, and I'll see you guys next time.